All right, today I'm going to talk about a super brave girl, Malala Yousafzai. She, at 17 years old, she got the Nobel Peace Prize. 17. That's crazy. Because at 11 years old, she decided to speak out against the Taliban. Now you guys, I know Claire had never heard of the Taliban. I assume you guys have heard of the Taliban. And they are pretty ruthless, oppressive, violent. And they said that young girls don't need to be educated. And I know this, I know for a fact that this happens because we had a family come from Afghanistan a couple years ago to our school, a boy and a girl, and I think they were both juniors when they came, their brother and sister. And the girl came with 0 credits because the Taliban refused to release her school transcripts. They wouldn't let her have her school transcripts. So she came with nothing, and her brother came with all his high school credits. So she had to work doubly hard to try to get all these credits because the Taliban doesn't believe that women should be educated or girls should be educated. And so Malala started speaking out against the Taliban. So I've got a little news story that tells her story a little bit better than I will. So I don't know how many 11-year-olds would go on film and speak out against a powerful organization like the Taliban. But Malala saw that that organization was bullying. They were bullying the whole nations. The nations, wherever they are, they bully, they intimidate, they kill, they beat. Everything they do is to instill fear so that people will just do what they want. And here's this 11-year-old girl who had the courage to say, no, it's not right. What you're doing is not right. And I'm going to tell the world about it. She blogged, they did the documentary, and of course the Taliban, in true Taliban fashion, came after her. And I do believe it's a miracle that she survived, that she lived, because if they don't say the whole thing, but she had such extensive damage to her brain that, and in Pakistan they didn't have a doctor who had the skills to take care of that. But this woman who's like the cream of the crop in brain, like neurology and surgery, just happened to be nearby, and they rushed her to the hospital. She was willing to drop everything and rush and save this young girl. And I just think about, gosh, the courage that took. I wish I had just an nth of that courage to stand up for people. Because we're in the series talking about bullies. Bullies intimidate, and the reason they intimidate is because they want you to just fall in line. They want you to do what they want, whether it's what you believe in or not. And they use all kinds of means. You know, we don't have Taliban here in America, but we do have mafia, and they keep people in line. Some would argue that politicians are doing that. Like, even in our families, sometimes there are bullies. Families who you're constantly, like that one person that everybody picks on, or that people put down to keep them in line. Or where you work, there might be someone who everyone is mean to, or it doesn't include, there's a woman at school and people don't want to talk to her. They ignore her. They don't invite her into the conversation. They don't invite her to lunch. And that's a form of bullying. When multiple people are doing that, that's harming someone repeatedly. And when a group of people do it, that's bullying too. And so we need to take a note from Malala. And Jesus also, I won't say Jesus took a note from Malala because obviously he came first, but Jesus stood up for people too. He stood up against the bullies. And so there's this time in Jesus' day, the bullies in the Bible in Jesus' day are called the Pharisees. The Pharisees were the religious leaders, and they wanted people to fall in line. They wanted people to do what they said, and they would get you, publicly ridicule you, publicly pull out oh, this is what you did wrong. Did you know that Paula did this? And they would publicly harm people. They would kick people out of the church. They would threaten people. They would get together and be oh, there's a terrible person. And so they were bullies. And Jesus was kind to everybody except them. Jesus was kind to every sinner, no matter how much you sinned, but he was not kind to the Pharisees because he's like, I'm not going to bow down to you, you stupid bullies. And so there's this one time, Jesus is out teaching. It says at dawn, Jesus appeared in the temple courts, and all the people are gathered around. He sits down, he's teaching them. And the teachers of the law, these Pharisees, they bring in a woman caught in adultery and make her stand before the group. Now, A number one. I don't know about you, but adultery means two people. I don't know how you can be caught in the act of adultery unless you're with someone else. But notice they only brought the woman. Why didn't they bring the man? I don't know. They don't tell us. But I'm like, this just goes to show what bullies they were, you know? And I imagine them throwing this woman down into the dirt in front of it, and they're like, look at this teacher. This woman, we just caught her in the act of adultery. So according to the law of Moses, and because they were Jewish and Jesus was Jewish, according to that, we've got to stone her. What do you have to say about that? And they were using this to trap him. They were trying to come up with ammunition so they could tear him down because he stood up to them. And so this is like the Taliban trying to shoot Jesus in the head. They couldn't do it because they knew everyone would rebel. And so they tried to make him take himself out by saying something that they could aha, you know? And Jesus, in true Jesus fashion, catches them in their own trap. So he bends down, he starts writing in the dirt with his finger. And they're like, what do you think, Jesus? We should stone her, right? That's what the law says. Don't you agree, Jesus? And he's just writing, and he stands up, and I can just see him just picture it super chill, be like, all right, how about this? Whichever of you has never sinned, you guys can throw that first rock. They've all got these rocks in their hands. They're like, yeah, we're going to get this woman, or we're going to get Jesus. And Jesus is like, all right, cool. Whichever of you has never sinned in your life, go ahead and throw a stone. And he waits. He stoops back down. He's writing in the dirt. Some theorize that he was writing the names of their sins in the dirt. Gossip, didn't keep the Sabbath, wore 2 different kinds of clothing, lied, cheated. Some people think that's what he was doing in the dirt. Who knows? He could have been drawing pictures. I don't know. But when he stands up again, they'd all left. They all leave one at a time, the older ones first, until just Jesus is left. And I think the older ones went first because they were wiser, and they probably had more sins on their list. And they're like, oh, snap, you got us, right? And so he straightens up and he looks around. He's like, woman, where are they? No one's condemned you? And she's like, no. He says, okay, then I'm not going to condemn you. He says, go and leave your life of sin. He doesn't let her off. He's like, it's fine. What you did is fine. He's like, I'm not going to condemn you, but hey, try to do better next time. Jesus is a God of grace, and Jesus he was strong and powerful, and he stood up to the bullies. He said, not on my watch. I'm not doing it. Jesus understood. Edmund Burke says, evil wins when good men do nothing. Evil wins when good men do nothing. We're called as Christians to do something. In whatever sphere it is that you see bullying happening. So if in your family there's that one person who everyone's picking on, be like, hey, why don't you cut them a break? Or that person who no one wants to eat lunch with, hey, let's go to lunch together. Or maybe you are in your neighborhood. Maybe you hear everybody always gossiping about that one person. Hey, man, let's not talk about them. My friend Katie, one time, she was convicted about gossiping once. And I remember we were talking about, you know how it is, you get together and people start talking about people and we're talking about somebody. And she would say, I'm not going to talk about them. They're not here to defend themselves. And I was like, oh. What a good Christ-like answer. They're not here to defend themselves. We shouldn't talk about them. And I think now about the courage it took for her to stand up to her friends and say, I'm not going to talk about them and you shouldn't either. That takes a lot of courage. Because, we were all like, Whoa. And we could have easily been like, oh, you feel that way too. We could have, if she continued to do that, she was risking her friends talking about her, not wanting to be around her. But instead, she was strong like Jesus, strong like Malala says, I don't think we should talk about that person. They're not here to defend themselves. We are called to be good bystanders. In school, we have a program called Green Dot. It actually originated in Kentucky, and it's a global program now, and it teaches kids to be like Malala, to be like Katie, to say, hey, what's happening, this is icky, and I'm not going to put up with it. We're not going to stand by and let you hurt someone else. We're going to stand up to the bullies. Even a lot of times we don't want to stand up to the bullies because then we're afraid that we'll be the next victim. But Jesus didn't do that. Malala didn't do that. Katie didn't do that. They said, no, what you're doing is wrong, and we need to stop it. And I tell you what, when we were around Katie, we didn't gossip as much because we knew she'd call us out, and she should have. She was doing the right thing. In Proverbs, in the Hebrew Bible, it says, speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up. Judge fairly and defend the rights of the poor and the needy. God calls us to speak up. When you see injustice happening, speak up. When you see someone being bullied, speak up. And to teach our kids, those of us who have kids, teach our kids to speak up. Teach our kids to be brave and say, no, that's not right. Claire was getting bullied on the bus. And one of her older friends spoke up and said, you're not going to pick on Claire like that. We need to be those people. Jesus was that person, and when we say yes to Jesus, we become Christians, meaning Christ-like. If we're going to be Christ-like, then we need to speak up when we see injustice happening. We've got to be brave like Malala, brave like Jesus, brave like Katie. And so this week, I dare you. Every week I give you guys 4 things you can do, tangibly things that you can do to grow in your faith, to get closer to God. And so this week, look around in your sphere. Who's being excluded? Who's being mistreated? Who do the other people talk about, gossip about? Who are the other people giving them a hard time? Maybe who in our city? Maybe who in our nation is being mistreated? Ask God, where do you want me to speak up? Lord, show me places where I need to stand up for people. Give me the courage that I need to stand up to people, including my own friends and family. You could read in Luke 10 the story of the woman, or Proverbs. You could try to memorize Proverbs 31, 8, and 9. And to engage others, start looking for those people who have been bullied, who are being bullied. Compliment them. Tell them how great they are. Take them out to lunch, whatever. Call them up. Make sure that they feel loved, seen, included. We are called to be brave people who stand up to the bullies. Because I think like the Lion King, if you've ever seen the Lion King, when Mufasa goes into the hyena den, and they're like, what are you going to do about it, little prince? He's like, wow, wow. And then you hear, roar, because his dad was right behind him. That's who we are. We're little Mufasas. But our dad, God, is behind us, watching over us, protecting us, giving us strength and courage to speak up, to stand up to the hyenas, to stand up to the Taliban, to stand up to the bullies in our life. We are called to be people who stand strong. And all of God's children said, amen.